Royal Rife, pleomorphic microbes, and the completion of the biological terrain theory. Welcome. Today we're going to explore a fascinating and often hidden chapter of medical history, one with profound implications for how we view health, disease, and healing. We're diving into the discoveries of Royal Rife, the nature of pleomorphic microbes, and how these concepts bring a missing dimension to modern biological terrain theory. The view of how the body's inner environment affects your health. The dominant view in modern medicine is based on germ theory, the belief that microbes are fixed species invading the body from outside. But Antoine Béchamp and others proposed the concepts that we now refer to as terrain theory. This is the concept that disease arises when the internal environment becomes unbalanced, allowing native microbes to change form and become problematic. This leads us to the concept of pleomorphism. Pleomorphism means many forms. Microbes are not fixed. They can transform depending on the terrain. Antoine Béchamp identified tiny particles he called microzymas as the fundamental units of life. These particles could evolve into bacteria, yeast, or even fungal forms if the internal environment became toxic, acidic, or poorly oxygenated. Dr. Royal Raymond Rife later built his universal microscope in the 1930s that was so advanced it could view the microbial world in motion, something the modern electron microscope still cannot do. Through his lens, he witnessed pleomorphism firsthand. He saw bacteria morph into viruses and viruses into fungi, confirming Béchamp's forgotten truth. Now, at the time, the term virus was not so widespread. He often used the term filterable bacteria, but that's a story for another day. Rife didn't stop at observation. He discovered that each pathogenic organism had a unique vibrational frequency. By applying that frequency, the mortal oscillatory rate, as he called it, he could destroy the organism without harming healthy cells. The missing information in this part of history is that Rife knew that an organism could thrive at this MOR frequency, but when it was pulsed in a very unique way, the organism would be dissolved back into its constituent parts and could easily be expelled from the body as toxins. It wasn't just theory. He built devices and conducted experiments demonstrating it repeatedly. This principle of frequency-based healing lies at the heart of what we now call bioenergetic wellness. The wellness part was added to the name largely because of the powerful three-letter agencies and pharma that control the language around healthcare. So why haven't you heard about Rife? Or if you have heard about him, why has the information about him been so misleading? After seeing patients get well using frequency therapy, his lab was raided, records were destroyed, and his name erased from medical history. His business partner, Philip Hoyland, turned against him and helped bury his work in a lengthy court battle, stabbing him in the back in a way that would haunt this technology for many decades, even after Rife's death in 1971. The suppression came from powerful interests that saw Rife's discoveries as a threat to pharmaceutical profits and the existing medical establishment. Modern terrain theory rightly emphasizes pH balance, detoxification, and cellular nutrition, but it often overlooks the dynamic nature of microbes and the power we have to influence them directly. Rife's discoveries complete the picture, revealing how specific frequencies can guide microbial expression, neutralizing harmful forms without collateral damage. Yet frequency alone is not enough. Our internal terrain is also sculpted by what we eat, absorb, and excrete. Essential minerals like magnesium, selenium, iodine, and over 70 trace minerals are the electrical conductors of biology. Vitamins, enzymes, amino acids all act as terrain modulators, nourishing our cells and informing microbial behavior. Together, frequency and nutrition give us the tools to not only respond to illness, but to proactively harmonize the terrain. We are not passive victims of germs, we are dynamic conductors of our inner ecosystem. Let's now introduce Gaston Naessens, a brilliant and controversial French-Canadian researcher who, like Royal Rife, designed a revolutionary microscope that allowed him to observe living blood in motion at extremely high resolution. He named it the Somatoscope, and through it he discovered a subcellular entity he called the somatid, a tiny resilient life form that appears in all living blood. Naessens proposed that the somatid undergoes a structured life cycle of 16 stages, but only the first 3 are present in healthy individuals. These 3 stages are 1. Somatid, spore-like form, the smallest seed-like phase. 2. Spore bud or germination stage, activation and swelling of the somatid. 3. Double spore stage, replication or energy exchange, reflecting cellular vitality. These phases occur harmlessly, serving essential roles in cellular communication, immune function, and terrain balance. They are essentially the microbiological symphony of health. However, when the terrain is disturbed due to toxicity, immune suppression, emotional stress, radiation, or oxygen depletion, the somatid begins transitioning into an additional 13 pathological stages. These include bacteria-like, fungal-like, and yeast-like forms, with progressively more aggressive and complex behaviors. Naessens documented these transitions under live observations. As internal conditions deteriorated, the somatids elongated, clustered, and mutated into spiny, mobile entities, eventually contributing to tumor formation, autoimmunity, and degenerative disease. He found that these pathological forms retreated once the terrain was improved, much like Rife and Béchamp's pleomorphic observations. This cycle further confirms that what we call disease-causing microbes are not foreign invaders, but terrain-dependent expressions of internal stress. Naessens' work is a powerful affirmation of pleomorphism and a devastating challenge to the static microbe model still taught today. His discoveries not only validated Rife's observations, but offered another layer of biological precision, showing that microbial expression isn't random, it's programmable, reversible, and deeply intelligent, guided by the state of the terrain. In this new light, we see microbes as responders to internal stress, not random invaders. When the terrain becomes toxic due to acidity, heavy metals, lack of oxygen, or emotional stress, microbes shift into disease-associated forms to help clean up the mess. These forms are often misidentified as pathogens, but they may actually be indicators of a deeper imbalance, playing an adaptive role in terrain regulation. Even Louis Pasteur, the father of germ theory, is said to have admitted on his deathbed, the microbe is nothing, the terrain is everything. This simple truth reshapes how we see illness. Pathogens aren't causes, they're messengers of imbalance, reflecting terrain breakdown. The same microbial shifts appear in cancer and other chronic illness. Fungal and mycoplasmic forms are consistently seen in diseased tissues. Are these microbes the cause or the consequence of long-standing toxicity? Pleomorphism suggests the latter. These are terrain-borne adaptations, not invaders, and often function as a part of a natural detoxification response gone awry. In our modern era, we face a new challenge: synthetic biology. Marketed as biotechnology, this field often introduces engineered nanostructures, synthetic constructs designed to interact with biological systems. But these are not natural components of the terrain. These nanotoxins introduced through pharmaceuticals, injectables, and environmental contaminants, including aerosol sprays, are not living microbes. They are artificial disruptive technologies that mimic or interfere with biological processes. While sometimes framed as viruses, they more accurately represent terrain disruptors. Engineered toxic so-called biocompounds introduced into the ecosystem of the body. These are only biological in the sense that they do influence our biology, and when consumed by bacteria in our microbiome, these can result in modified bacteria that we carry around in our microbiome. Despite working in different times and different places, Rife and Naessens both witnessed the truth. The microbe is dynamic and intelligent. Their discoveries were suppressed not because they were wrong, but because they threatened a system built on static models and pharmaceutical control. Today, one might argue that their solutions worked too well in a system which is based on sick care rather than actual healing. We are now being called to embrace a new biology, one that sees microbes, frequency, and terrain as a unified system. Illness is not war, it is imbalance, and healing is about coherence, resonance, and restoring the terrain to its natural state. This knowledge carries a deeper truth. We are part of nature, not separate from it. Microbes aren't our enemies. They are our symbiotic partners. Healing begins when we see ourselves as whole, connected beings, not broken machines. The time has come to rediscover what was hidden from Béchamp to Rife to Naessens. Their work offers a map back to empowerment, health, and biological truth. Let's revive this legacy and bring holistic wisdom into our future. In the end, the microbe was never the enemy. It is not separate from us, but a living expression of us, a shape-shifting whisper of the terrain responding in dance to the music of our internal environment. Health is not a battle to win, but a harmony to restore. And healing begins not by attacking form, but by tending to flow, restoring balance, energy, and coherence. The microbe is nothing. The terrain is everything. But perhaps more truthfully, the microbe is the terrain in motion. Thanks so much for watching. Visit forbiddentreatment.com for more.